Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Should we start in about 15 minutes?
Why?
Because we need 15 minutes of glitching, don't we?
It was so funny, man.
404 error.
I wasn't
Please
even,
try again in 30 seconds.
I don't even think I got as far as 404, mate. Oh dear, that was funny, wasn't it? Should we start there?
Oh, mate. What a bonkers weekend. I think I have had way worse weekends from a point scoring point of view. I think my lowest ever might be like 19 points or 23 points or something, like really bad weeks from a points point of view. But I'd scrubbed this weekend out in a heartbeat just because it felt like a lot of nothingness, basically. I missed the deadline. You missed the deadline. Well, I say missed the deadline.
So many of us missed the deadline.
I say missed the deadline. I'd set my bus team up, obviously, in advance of the weekend, which meant playing Lewis Dunk away at Wolves as my defender. And my bench was Gahey, Andreas, and Doherty.
Same bench, sweetheart.
Yeah, including the goalkeeper as well, Danny Ward. I left the armband on Haaland because I thought he would play, and
So did I.
And I left the vice on Mo Salah. Listening to your deadline stream as I was driving home with my kids from somewhere, and they were like, "Can we listen to the radio?" I was like, "Nah, I've got to listen to James's deadline stream."
You put me on with my F-bombs on the morning deadline stream with your kids in the car.
Those days
you are a bad father.
It's gone now. It wasn't morning, it was 1:30, mate.
Oh, it's true. It was afternoon. Yeah, I go more PG in the afternoon.
So I was like, they were like, "Oh, we'll listen." I was like, "Nah, I need to know what to do." So obviously you were umming and ahhing. I've had it from the patrons. It's coming. And I thought, right, okay, cool. I can make my transfer, which was going to be Mitrovic to Scamacca probably. But then I was thinking about Creswell as well. So my two moves that I was thinking of making were Mitrovic to Scamacca, Doherty to Cresswell, and then I would have...
These all made no difference.
I would have...
You got an extra transfer now.
moved the armband. Well, I burnt a transfer because I had 2 frees last week, so that's... Give me that one back, official.
Oh, burnt a transfer. That's sackable offence. You have to stop doing this podcast, mate.
Well,
can't be having burnt transfers, mate.
Tell me about it. I would have moved the armband to Callum Wilson had I known Haaland wasn't playing.
Okay. So you've had a result.
Well, yeah, overall. So, yeah, it was a pain, right? Don't get me wrong. I had my tablet and my laptop and I was hitting refresh on both. And there were a couple of times where I actually got into my team.
Yes, same.
And as soon as I did a click,
yep,
it kicked me out again. So, so be it. After the 3 o'clocks on Saturday, so there was a point where Lewis Dunk was on...
so many people were on minus.
Lewis Dunk was on 0 points.
4 games.
Foden, 0 points. Haaland, 0 points. Mitrovic, 0 points. João Cancelo, -2. So between the 5 of them, I was on a -2 at that moment in time. And obviously Pereira sitting second on my bench at 6 points. So you're thinking at this point, like 5 players, right? Okay, Mitrovic is going to come off. And Haaland comes on fine and gets my captain return, which I'll take right now all day long. And you're thinking this is going to be brutal, but it didn't affect my rank that much.
One of the idiots who tried to claim on Twitter that, I know Haaland starts. I think at half time he was on -6, I think. The only 2 players he had was Cancelo, captain, and Semedo.
Oh, wow.
Nico's cousin, by the way. Oh, my God, I've got ripping, mate. He had a nightmare the weekend.
By the end of the game week, I scored 58 points.
It's all right.
And I dropped from 487,500 to 489,000, like 1,495 place drop off, like halfway through the game week, being on -2 points at one point. I will take that and run as far as I possibly fucking can, and done. Like it felt like at the end of yesterday, after your game, and I was on live FPL, and it said 58 points and no rank drop. I was like, from where? Like, where are my points coming from? Like, how has this happened? But I had
Trippier and Salah for a start, I think.
Trippier, Salah,
Yeah.
and
Zaha.
Zaha comes good. And then Captain Haaland is a 10-pointer if you look at it, like doubled up. So decent returns in the end across them. I had 6 from Pereira and 6 from Danny Ward sitting on my bench. Again, Danny Ward.
You and everyone else, mate.
So yeah, 58 points I think feels decent. It's bang in the middle in terms of 3.6 million for a game week rank, so it's not great. But if it keeps me level, like on my overall rank after that weekend of nonsense, I'm taking it and running, mate.
Yeah, and I'm not bothered about the small red as well because my situation could have been much worse. So I finished on 53 returns for Trippier, Salah, Captain Haaland, and Dominic Solanke. Where we differed was I made a transfer on Friday night. I think it's fair to say we knew that there were going to be issues. Should the FPL servers be down for 15 minutes prior to deadline? No, of course they can't. I don't believe in some of the rumours of they've done it intentionally to stop people wanting to get late team news. Then people are still going to want late team news. It's not going to make a difference. But I moved Mitrovic to Schumacher on Friday night. Well, I know that I'm doing that. Don't need to be playing about. And it was probably easier for me in the sense that I'd kind of come to peace that even if there was late news of Haaland and Foden not starting, for me it was a case of smooth captaincy. I generally was going to leave it. I wasn't trying to sell those players or even sub them out. I just wasn't bothered. I didn't fancy Palace for a clean sheet at West Ham. And I'm thinking Foden or Haaland, if they get half hour against Fulham, shit can happen. So didn't want to captain Haaland, obviously, but I genuinely was just going to leave him in the team. Wasn't bothered. So I'm thinking, I still want them 2 players next week against Brentford.
Where were you going to move the captaincy?
Cancelo. Okay. So what I'd also done, which I think was, and this is something to think about for the weekend, what I had done, and look, it's not going to be a problem this weekend anyway, right? Because Haaland's going to start against Brentford, unless he was to get injured in the Carabao Cup game against Chelsea, which I don't imagine he'll play, but you never know with Pep. I'd had the vice on Salah, which obviously that could have turned out potentially great. But I think it's a sensible idea to have your vice just from a different game at the moment anyway. So obviously all I've tried to do is move the captaincy from Haaland to Cancelo. So obviously when Cancelo got sent off, I'm laughing now. So it's literally saved me quite a number of, 7 points or so. So look, it worked in my favour. And I know that for the majority of people, it's obviously not worked in favour. And I think those who are trying to make transfers, it's obviously extremely frustrating. As I said, the website obviously shouldn't be down at that period. You've just got, I think it's everybody's so much more in the know now in terms of that information was going to come to the point that we even knew it was going all around the Bird app, like Team News and Ticks was going to have an announcement at 1:10 p.m. And as far as I'm aware, he's never been wrong so far. So people trust that information. The information was correct again. I can't bother to talk about the deadline. I'm so bored with the conversation with it. I don't really care if it's at kick-off, if it's an hour before, an hour and a half before, if it's midnight the night before. As I tweeted, they could move the deadline to Sunday morning, would still fuck it up because I'd have captained Cancelo, so it wouldn't have worked out, right? So, yeah, I can't bother to talk about that. Whatever, as I said last week, whatever solution doesn't work for someone.
No.
Whatever it is. Whatever solution doesn't work for someone, even to the extent you go, right, you put it at kickoff. Oh, that's my lunch break. That's the hour I'm at work and I can't do nothing. It's not going to work for everybody. Whatever it is, I'm bored talking about it. Let's not talk about it anymore. But it's unacceptable that those servers were down for 15 minutes,
Correct.
wasn't it? That's not on.
Yeah.
It's Mickey Mouse. In the same way it was Mickey Mouse, our loads of teams were getting hacked last year. Mm-hmm. It's poor. It's poor form. Do you think they should come out and apologise?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, what difference does it make?
No, I mean, they should acknowledge it. The fact that the first tweet after deadline is like, how many points are you going to score?
But they don't want to acknowledge it. They don't want to acknowledge it.
Well, the servers are down.
Because for the average person who's made their transfers on the Friday, they don't know, so why acknowledge it?
Yeah, but I think there's plenty of people that do.
Well, obviously.
Plenty of people that do.
Don't suppose there's anyone doing content this week who's not going to mention it.
How many, $1 million question then, how many managers need to be logged into the FPL site at the same time for their servers to crash?
You're the tech whiz, not me, mate.
It depends on the volume and number of servers and bandwidth that they have. So,
at a guess, we say max $1 million?
Yeah, I think more than it wouldn't be more than $1 million, but 500,000 people logged into our website at any given time. We'll talk about this.
It's a lot of people in one place, but at the same time.
What I'll do on Thursday, we'll give our patron a shout out in a second. We work here in the packaging company that pays the bills. We've got developers. There's 2 of them in on Thursday.
Oh, I bet they could do a better job than official FPL.
On Thursday, for 5 minutes added on, which is a patron feature, I'll do your 5 minutes added on, and I'll get Gio and Shamsel, and I'll be like, yo, boys, this website broke. Tell me why. And I'll stick a mic in front of them, and let's find out what they say about...
That's not going to be 5 minutes added on, is it? It's going to be a podcast.
No, I'll give you 5 minutes. I'll be interested. How many questions? How many people need to be on the website?
Just be clear.
It's a break.
You promised that now, and I'm not going to be in the office on Thursday.
That's why I'm saying I'll do it.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. And the other one is during the World Cup for the patrons, we're doing some watch-alongs. It feels like I'm about to go into the sales pitch.
You are.
Our friend at FPL.team,
Peter Featherstone.
Peter Featherstone's coming in. He's a techie guy.
Oh, he is.
So you sit down and talk to him about the deadline during what game's he coming in for?
He's coming in for Argentina, Saudi Arabia.
Nice. Yeah, so that's another person that would be good to have a little bit of deadline chinwag with.
I imagine Messi will have won that game within 20 minutes. So we can diversify.
Cool. Let's just plug Patreon quickly then while we're on Patreon. Patreon.com/Planet FPL. We mentioned it on last week's podcast, and we'll give you another overview of what's happening. In December, Patreon costs how much, James?
Nothing.
It's going to be free. So anybody that signs up to our Patreon now will get all of December's content for free. And in addition, in January, everybody in Patreon is going to get bumped up a level. So we have 3 tiers in our Patreon: a basic, intermediate, and advanced. Depending on the level you're at, you get extra content. So intermediate, get 1 podcast a day in the week.
Yep.
Advanced usually get a podcast a day plus some additional video content that James does.
And 5 minutes added on.
Talking tactics, 5 minutes added on, various other bits. Anybody at intermediate tier is going to get all of the advanced tier content in January.
Yep.
Anybody at basic tier, which is £3, is going to get all of the additional content.
I've fucked the sales pitch last week. I said it would be £11 for the 3 months at basic tier. It's not. It's £6, isn't it?
6. You pay 3 months now, but you don't get the content in November.
No, you get into Slack.
Yeah, and you get to speak to hundreds of other engaged managers. We're doing a little promo. So basically...
sign up now.
Any questions, DM James at Planet FPL Pod. But if you sign up now, December is completely free. We're going to be doing watch-alongs. We've got some special guests coming into the studio for the World Cup watch-alongs with the patrons as well. Clayton's coming in, and Pete, and Adam and a few others coming in. So that'll be fun. And we'll be getting ready for the game kicking off again on Boxing Day. And obviously then you've got January. You've got a chance to sample some of the other content as well.
Unless it kicks off before Boxing Day.
What does?
The Premier League.
Why would it?
I don't think it's impossible. Hold silence.
I have no idea what James is alluding to.
Well,
if you want to support the show, go to Patreon. Now tell me, why will the World Cup start before...
You mean the Premier League?
Why will the Premier League start before...
I think it's extremely unlikely. But we've got League Cup games this week, and there are games that need rearranging into the schedule. I'll just cover off very quickly, because a few people have been asking me, particularly towards the end of last week, about Manchester United. Because Manchester United obviously finished second in their Europa League group, so they have to play this last 32 stage, where say yourselves and Arsenal have jumped straight to the last 16 in your competitions. So if Manchester United got to the Europa League semi-finals, the FA Cup semi-finals, and the Carabao Cup final, they would have in total, and this is obviously without any weather or COVID issues or anything like that, they would have 5 games to rearrange, only 3 available midweeks. So all I'm saying is, in the circumstance where, let's just say, bad example probably, but let's say Manchester United and Leeds both lost in the Carabao Cup this midweek, I don't think it is impossible that they could play in the midweek before Boxing Day. I think that's a very unlikely situation, because particularly in Manchester United's case, they could have players that go very deep in the World Cup. But I've heard this rumoured for Brighton and Palace that could happen if both those teams went out in the Cup this week, because the midweek before the Premier League resumes is the 4th round of Carabao Cup. So if you've got 2 teams who've got a game to rearrange and they haven't got a Carabao Cup fixture, it's not impossible. Right. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
But we don't need to worry about that now because we'll all be on unlimited anyway, and we'll be going treble Brighton and treble Palace, for example. But yeah, it's not impossible. In terms of that United, that backlog, like it's not a drama. They need to get that far in the competitions for that to become a major issue. They probably won't, let's be honest.
Cool. Let's get through some of these games. We've obviously only got 1 week left to worry about before the World Cup. So in terms of who we're targeting and who we're not.
1 week punts.
It is very narrow, and we can talk about who is and isn't potentially worth it. But Leeds 4, Bournemouth 3. This is like booed off at half-time and glorious victors by the end for Leeds.
I watched all of this game back on Saturday night. Sky rerun the whole game, and I watched all of it in its entirety. And
is this Leeds of Bielsa days?
No.
End-to-end madness, crazy, winning games 4-3?
No, because actually for an hour they were second best.
Right.
Bournemouth were the better team for the first hour, but then they threw everything at Bournemouth to get back in that game. And you could, obviously having watched Tottenham beat Bournemouth last week, you could feel that kind of sliding inevitability where Bournemouth almost knew what was coming and they were just getting deeper and deeper and deeper. They are the first team in Premier League history to lose consecutive Premier League games when they've been leading by 2 goals. It takes some doing that when you think about it. We're obviously 2-0 up against Tottenham. We're 3-1 up on Saturday. But it speaks volumes for the enjoyment of the game that I watched it all back. Never looked at my phone or anything. Watched it all back. Knew what was happening and still really enjoyed it.
Nice.
So it's probably the best game of football I've seen this season, actually. As said, Bournemouth played really well. They changed tactically differently from the game against Tottenham, where they had Marcus Tavernier playing this hybrid wing-back role, where they were playing a back 5 without the ball and a back 4 with it. He played in front of Adam Smith on the right-hand side. They both moved to the left-hand side in this game, and they moved to a flatter 4-4-2, which I think inevitably hindered them, because when the pressure was coming, they probably should have took Moore or Solanke off and put an extra man in midfield or moved back to a back 5, and they didn't. And I suspected because Moore had got the 2 goals against Tottenham, they were going to stay with the front. So that said, it worked very well for them in the first half. Philip Billing played on the right-hand side of midfield, was a threat. Don't knock your mic over there, Suj. Scored a terrific goal. He really does strike a ball when he gets into positions. And as said, they were the better team for an hour, which was surprising because obviously Leeds have this perfect start with a penalty basically near enough from kickoff, which Rodrigo scores. And then off the back of winning at Liverpool last week, you think, build something now. This is a big game. I noted Andy Martin said straight after beating Liverpool, he said, I'm really worried about Bournemouth next week already. And I'm thinking, just enjoy this one.
Yeah.
But I get it now in hindsight because they still have fragility, clearly. As said last week, like they're better with Cooper in the team because of his leadership. Is he actually a better footballer than some of their other options like Llorente? I'm not actually convinced. And Bournemouth really troubled them with the system. I think there's probably a plot line with Leeds, and this goes for a number of teams possibly at the moment, where Bournemouth have changed the system and they're obviously structured in terms of what they want to do off the ball. Leeds, I think that I've got a clearer identity with what they're doing off the ball than what they're doing with the ball currently. So when an opposition changes system to something they're not expecting, like I wasn't expecting Bournemouth to go 4-4-2, I think it hurts them. And then they're looking for help and they miss a little bit of experience on the pitch at important times. But that inexperience has won them the game because they've ended up with Wilfried Gnonto, who's a player not too many will be familiar with, but he's already a full Italy international, Italy's youngest ever player. He's like, it's little short dude, and I can say this because I am one, and he just doesn't have the build or look of a footballer, but he just goes for it. He's fast, he carries the ball. Somerville looks a really bright talent. It's obviously
3-3 now for Somerville.
Yeah, dirt cheap as well. But you think of that FPL midfield, you could have now. You can have Pereira, you can have Somerville, you can have Bailey, and all you need is Almiron for captain, and you can spread the money elsewhere in the team.
Couldn't spend the rest of the money. Somerville's obviously started the last few. Do you think he's going to keep playing? That's the problem is when you buy these cheap players. It's like, why'd you buy him? So you're going to buy him and play him so that you can really spread the money elsewhere, or you're going to buy him and bench him, and then you just look at the points on the bench, and it's bloody annoying anyway. But at that price, look, he's the best option.
Look, here's a young player who not too many would have been familiar with, bar the odd kind of substitute appearance last year. Look, he had the confidence and the balls to go to them in the summer when Rafinha left and went, I want a number 10 shirt. He's a kid. He got it. So they obviously do have some sort of faith with him within the club. He scored the winning goal in the last 2 games. Would I go and buy him this week ahead of Tottenham away? No, that's not what I'd lose my last transfer on, to be honest, unless it was to fund a second move. Maybe for you, Suji, it might be something you'd consider. I think 1 free transfer is probably not the last week move you're making. Would he stay in the team? Well, I think he's got favoured where he's got left on rather than Harrison got taken off at the weekend. It is worth saying, obviously, Sinistera's injured and obviously Bamford's not in the team at the moment. So Bamford picked up a hip problem, taking a penalty in the last action of training, apparently, on Friday. He's got ongoing issues he can't really get rid of. But it wasn't just those 3 as well. Sam Greenwood in midfield, who's obviously a forward in FPL, was 4.2, came on and played centre midfield and played a blinder. Scored a brilliant goal, also got an assist as well. Just note that he's not 4.2 forward. If he's getting in the team at the moment, he looks like he's kind of first choice understudy for Rocker and Adams. So he would be playing a deeper position, but technically really gifted. He got on the set pieces straight away and stuff. So they've got a number of kids there who you could use as enablers on the other side, definitely. Somerville would be the best one. Greenwood, if you want to go 2 up front, he's the budget forward to have if you decide you want to do that on unlimited.
Bournemouth have got Everton at home for their last game before the World Cup. Everton off the back of losing, we'll talk about them against Leicester. I don't mind if, like, Solanke, if you wanted to go with home punt last game before, if it gives you money to go elsewhere. I've got 2 yellow flags at the moment, which is Wilson and Mitrovic. So I need to have a think about if Wilson's not going to play.
My best guess is both of them will play.
Yeah, so but if I wanted to just move them on, and that's where I wanted to take my punts, then I don't mind Solanke from Mitrovic goes down and gives me money to go up to maybe Jesus, who has got Wolves away.
He's certainly a reasonable one. I mean, I would have honestly, if I'd have been buying at that price this time, I would have gone Abonee. I was quite high on it. Obviously, he comes out of the team again, so that's clearly going to be a problem I don't think we can deal with going forwards. I think they'd have been better off in playing him, but there you go. So Solanke for the week, and I also think subject to budget, if you can have a little bit more on top of Somerville and you need something again, perhaps for a second transfer, I think Billing and Tavernier are really reasonable. Tavernier was outstanding. Really, really good. Really good. He's 4.9. Billing is 5.3. Just a note for them as well. Obviously, defensively, they're in trouble. They're in trouble because Travers is not Neto. And I'm pretty sure that Cooper's goal, the header, Neto keeps that out. He's not dominating in the area. They concede a load of corners again, inviting the pressure as they'd done the week before. And I think it's going to be an ongoing problem for them. So I'd be very conscious you got the likes of Cody Tarkovsky. I'd probably want them in the team this week. Actually, subject to what you've got, even though it's an away fixture. And Chris Metham is suspended this coming week, 5th yellow. Either Jack Stevens, who's on loan from Southampton, will come in the team, or they'll move what they did late in this game when they when they were chasing the game after Leeds' 4th goal, was to move Lerma back to centre-back. So they might even do that, move Lerma into centre-back, possibly put Billing into a more central area and bring perhaps Christie back into the team. Finally, just before we move on, Planet FPL listeners, can we stop quote tweeting and giving attention to talk shite? Doing my head in. I want to know, if you see anyone in the FPL community who's quote tweeting talk shite, tag me, because I now know that they don't listen to Planet FPL. Stop giving that radio station attention with Mickey Mouse ex-pro players who've got nothing better to say about a game of football because they haven't watched it, and go, oh yeah, Leeds over-celebrated. Celebration police out again at the weekend. Oh. Are you mad? You're 3-1 down. You're in the middle of a relegation fight, potentially, if this goes wrong, and you win 4-3. I don't care who you're playing. You're 3-1 down, you win 4-3, you're going to go mental. And the winning goal is probably my favourite goal from a neutral perspective of the whole season. I'm not saying the best, but my favourite. Because the way those 2 kids, Nonto and Somerville, just drove at Bournemouth, the weight of pass from Nonto, the way Somerville comes onto it and finishes it, it's just a perfect dramatic ending to a brilliant game of football. Shut up. Stop giving these Mickey Mouse ex-pros fucking airtime. Honestly, Jamie O'Hara. played for my team. Every time he opens his mouth, I just want to hide. I want to put like my coat over my head. That's rant over.
Talking of dramatic finishes, Manchester City 2, Fulham 1. And obviously Haaland comes off the bench, puts the penalty away right at the death. Obviously could have...
He should have been saved as well, just to add to the drama. Leno should save it.
Yeah.
It's difficult to say a goalkeeper should save a penalty, but he'll be gutted with it.
I mean, he had the ball in the back of the net earlier with a marginal offside. Like that's one of those where you just time it half a second better and it's a goal, right? So this is Haaland, right? Coming off the bench, he can still smash in a number of opportunities. I was disappointed with Cancelo, to be honest with you, because it was so early in the game. When you look at Manchester City, you think, there's certain
Let him
times,
go.
Sometimes you say, like, take one for the team, or, that was fine.
Wilson probably scores and the game is easier for City than what it was.
20 minutes, exactly that, right? 20 minutes in, you don't back yourselves to outscore Fulham. You don't need to take that red card,
I think
man.
in
Sometimes
that moment,
there are times where I can say, yeah, fine, you took one for the team and I get it. That's not one of them.
I mean, I'd like that rule changed in the sense that I still think the penalty is punishment enough. But by law, it says if you don't make a genuine attempt to win the ball,
last man,
you're going to go, unfortunately. And he should know that. He also got sent off very early in a defeat they had at Brighton a couple of years ago, the end of the season, which didn't matter. They'd already, I think it was when Liverpool had already won the title. It was an irrelevant game. But same thing, they were 2-0 up in that game. He gets sent off early, they lose 3-2. So, I've spoken about this a lot with him. I don't think he's great defensively, but I think the way City play often hides a lot of their flaws. There's a lot of talk about Arsenal at the moment. Obviously, can they push City? Saka will roast Cancelo when those two teams play each other at the moment. He does. He gets done over against people who run at him and stuff, which you kind of forgive because he's so good, obviously, in so many other areas. Another rant thing. Can also people as well stop quote tweeting images or one replay clips and people then see it as gospel and go, oh my God. So perfect example. Have you seen the De Bruyne incident for the penalty?
Yeah.
So there's one clip which keeps getting shared around Twitter and it's a dive. It's a dive from that replay. There's another angle behind and you can absolutely see he gets a kick in the back of his calf. Now, is that enough for Kevin De Bruyne to go down? No. But if he doesn't go down, he doesn't win the penalty. Yep. Unfortunately, that's the sport that we're playing right now.
Yeah, we had the example of that in our game as well, where with Antonio's penalty, which I wouldn't have given as a penalty.
Antonio.
But
I can't wait to see how Callum Wilson's going to roast him on that podcast
but the thing
this
is,
week. I might listen to it.
There was a point where he grabbed his shirt, right? And I don't think he grabbed it for like 2 seconds and let go of it. I don't think there was any way near enough on it for Antonio to go down.
Of course not.
But if he hadn't gone down, then it definitely wouldn't have been given, right? But
I get that.
The only way he can make it clear to the ref that this has happened is if he goes down.
And he's nearly conned the ref.
Yeah. Well, the thing is he's had contact there. So I don't think it's enough contact to warrant a penalty.
The difference between the two situations is the reason the De Bruyne one's not get called out is because there's a replay behind. You can clearly see he gets that hard kick in his calf.
Yeah.
Which you wouldn't. If you got a hard kick in your calf, I think you'd feel for it and you'd be like, oh, and hobble or something. Listen, if he does that, he's not winning a penalty. He has to go to the floor, unfortunately.
And that's what I hate.
I hate it. That's down to officiating. That's down to law making. But if Kevin De Bruyne doesn't do that, Man City don't win a game of football.
Correct.
So he's right to do that, whether we like it or not. Haaland obviously also got booked for taking his shirt off as well, which meant KDB got into 2 bonus, I think, rather than 1. Not sure how Haaland, for just fluffing a penalty, would have been due the bonus anyway, to be honest, that he would have been getting. But that annoyed people. I'm thinking,
I wish my team would fluff penalties.
Be great. If you've got the captaincy left on him, be grateful that he's done something and not returned a 1-pointer. But still, the reaction afterwards is, oh my God, he took his shirt off. Well, do you know what? The 4 extra points he has just gotten you because he's got 1 bonus was better than just missing the penalty. That would have been the ultimate, wouldn't it? If it had been saved as well, on top of everything with the servers and stuff, would have been great. It's a great result for City, who dominated this football match despite having... I mean, Fulham's XG essentially was the penalty. I wouldn't have concerns about Haaland starting the next game. I imagine he does. Foden, your guess is as good as mine. But am I going to move it? Probably not. Am I going to wait last minute? Probably not. Because I don't think there's anything, if I look at alternative options that I haven't got at a similar price, Saka, Maddison, Bowen, all decent options this week. Bowen maybe less so, which you might want to talk about. But would I be waiting last minute for that? When I know that Foden could just easily play 45 minutes and do the damage anyway. Brentford have conceded, what have they conceded? 11 in the last 3 away games. It could be a field day, couldn't it? So, and I'm not taking -4s for De Bruyne without the information and stuff. So Foden will probably sit for me. It would be gambler's fallacy to think surely he starts the next one because we've done this already. But my instinct right now would be that, yeah, he probably will come back in the team. And just why I remember that, obviously, Christopher Jez got it's been reported minor and major, depending on where you read, a knee injury. But it means probably Roslev plays on the right side again. I would describe him as competent. Not a lot more than that.
What's your thoughts on Fulham? Because they now are at home to Manchester United. A lot of people would have been like, you can come off Mitrovic before the 2 Manchester games, which was fine because it worked out okay because he didn't play here. But now they got a home game against Manchester United, and United were back for all of 2 weeks and suddenly have lost. So you'd think that Mitrovic is still going to be able to give Manchester United some trouble, and it's a home game for Fulham. If I had inclination that he was going to play, I'd probably just stick with him now.
I had a conversation with a Fulham fan prior to the City game who I would happily name but doesn't want to be named, who'd said to me they wouldn't be surprised if Mitrovic was left out.
Yeah.
Which is why I mentioned it to you on Friday and I'd said it on the deadline stream as well. Look, I expect him to play.
2 weeks to
But
recover.
I wouldn't be shocked if they view City where he's going to spend so long without the ball. And although he works really hard, pressing is obviously not specifically his game and stuff. Do they take a view, because he's been playing injured and we know this, he's not been training properly, do they take a view and go, leave him out of City, it's getting right for United, which is a more winnable game on paper, and then he goes off to the World Cup? I think that's the most likely. Plus, obviously, he was on the 4 yellows, wasn't he? So you know what he's like. He can't help himself.
Yeah.
So there's every chance he was getting... Maybe they took the view as well and went, he might get booked on purpose and have a little break before the World Cup. Who knows? So I think they just decided to take him out. Fulham don't think the situation is serious. I suspect they've just chosen to take him out of this, I think. And I imagine he probably will play. Pereira's annoying, isn't he? I think Andy Mirza said last week, yet again, I think he's missed out on the points. He's not the only one. Everybody has, in most cases, where he seems to be returning where he's on the bench. And when you need him, it's not coming up. But he's just ideal as a fifth midfielder at the moment. But I think there is a conversation to be had on the other side where we look at Somerville, Bailey, and I'm not saying have all 3 of these players if you include Pereira, but it might be a case to go with 2 of them. Possibly. Because what that then allows you is quite easier if you want to have freemium and have, say, Salah, De Bruyne and Haaland as an example, or Salah, Kane, Haaland, however you want to do it. That certainly helps, and these guys look like they're going to be regulars going forward. Now, it's looking further ahead, and I don't think, certainly in Leeds' case, I don't think they have the best fixtures afterwards necessarily. I think they've got a couple of, I think it's Newcastle and City maybe in the first couple afterwards. But if it's a case to begin to look at that, Pereira's great. I don't want to move him on. And here as well, we thought this when Mitrovic was out, was going to potentially miss before. Would he be on the pens if Mitrovic was out? Well, I think we've got the answer now as well. Just on City, finally, Suj. I saw a clip, and I need to investigate, and I'm going to do it for Talking Tactics. I saw something mental with Nathan Ake and John Stones after Man City went down to 10 men, where there was a passage of play, and this is, I'm sure it was in Match of Day's highlights, so if people want to watch it back, where they've ended up going into the fullback positions after Cancelo was sent off, and intentionally in a build-up play, the 2 of them ended up in a front 3. And I have to investigate it.
Right, Forest 2, Brentford 2, Desmond.
Cancelo's not suspended, by the way.
Yeah.
He will serve his suspension in the Cup,
Forest 2, Brentford 2. Brentford still get 2 on the score sheet without Ivan Toney playing, who will now be back for that Manchester City game. But is he not?
Well, we don't really know the story on this, but he's been investigated for potentially breaches of gambling rules.
Oh, has he?
So we don't know.
I didn't know anything about this.
Brentford put a statement out, so weird, on Saturday. Brentford put a statement out saying they were aware of the stories circulating on social media but wouldn't comment. They put that out as a statement. There's several media sources reporting over the weekend that potentially, and this may even predate when he was at Brentford, there's no accusation here of rigging games or anything. We're talking about having a bet. So, but you remember, like, Trippier got banned for like 6 months and stuff. Yeah. You will get done badly. And if this could be terrible news and timing for him, because it would rule him out of obviously England's World Cup squad, and he's on the fringes whether he's going to be in this week or not. So if he gets proven to have done it and been playing professionally at the time, even if it was like back when he was at Peterborough or something, it's probably looking at a lengthy ban, and that would be disastrous for Brentford. For me, that would pull them immediately into a relegation fight.
Yep.
So that's a new story potentially to keep an eye on. I'm going to presume most people sold Tony anyway, bearing in mind it's obviously Manchester City this coming weekend. As I said, Ajer has got an injury, so they played Roslev at right back. They did play a back four, but it moved very much to a back three in possession. So if you look at Rico Henry's heat maps versus Roslev, it's like night and day. Henry bombing on down that left-hand side. I really wish Gareth Southgate had a look at him in the last England squad. I presume that won't happen now, despite Ben Chilwell's injury. But they nearly won the game. I thought Visser took the goal really well. I think Forest have a potential problem with people playing right through them like that. I think defensively, they're not at Premier League standards, always liable to be conceding goals. So if you think of Zaha, I mean, he'll probably be 1 pointer now, I've said it, but he really could have some joy against them, I think.
Yeah.
It's important they got something. I think Forest needed to be looking at 4 points on these two games, and they are capable of beating Palace, because Palace can be a bit Jekyll and Hyde. But I think they'll probably feel they need to. Morgan Gibbs-White is a potential interesting one, I think, for 1 week punters. So he's 5.5. He had 7 shots at the weekend, 2 chances created. He basically played as a false 9 with, obviously Johnson came back on the team, and obviously Emmanuel Dennis came in the team. They played as
left and right.
Yeah, more like split forwards, I would say. Mark Sutherland spoke to us a lot about this in the summer. Players split forwards, and then whoever is the 10, which he was obviously hoping in the summer before they bought Gibbs-White, Lingard was going to do the job. Great. Yeah, him, Jay Lings. Can you... something like that, isn't it?
Whatever it is.
Nico just did it. Nico just did it behind the camera as well. Oh, Jay Lings is dead to Suj. He empties and fills into the space.
Yeah.
Those for a 1 week punt, and you have to remember with players like this, I think he's the sort of one where you go and get, and after the first blank, you'll immediately be thinking, I wish I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
This week you can do it and it doesn't matter. You can get rid of it. And I think he's an interesting one for this week. That said, Palace played Schlupp deeper yesterday, which we'll talk about, and I think that's fixed a lot of problems. Interestingly as well, I think Dean Henderson was a lucky boy not to be sent off for the penalty, because technically that's not an attempt for the ball either. Now, I wouldn't want him to be sent off for that. And obviously, Mbeumo's taken the penalty very well. But I think it's not dissimilar in the sense that there isn't an actual attempt on the ball. Or does he get away with it because they deem that because he stretched his hand out, that because he can use his hands, that's an attempt for the ball? That's how I think he's got away with it. Because technically, I think by law, he could have gone there as well. I think the referee does the City Fulham, sends Henderson off. Right. If you've got the different referee in that situation. So I think it was a little bit lucky not to go. Williams played left back. Does he play again this week? Don't know.
No one does.
Sorry.
If you'd have said to me the Wolves-Brighton game is going to finish 3-2 to Brighton, I would have...
Poor Wolves have scored twice, still lost.
Not been surprised at the 3 for Brighton. I would have been surprised at the 2 for Wolves. But Brighton have conceded goals, to be fair, so maybe it's fitting. But I think Wolves will be a bit disappointed that they scored 2 goals, got nothing out of it.
I told you Ruben Neves is going to leave in January. He's going to finish the season as their top goal scorer.
He might.
And to be fair, Gonzalo Guedes, who obviously come in the team for Adama Traore, which was surprising, particularly considering Diego Costa's absence. He scored a very good goal, actually. Brighton are going to give up chances. And I think for those who are considering Brighton for FPL assets, again, it's 1 week now. Of course, you can buy, I think, for Villa if you want to. But longer term, I think they're going to frustrate because they will give you a chance. The structural possession-based play with this kind of square that they create with the 2 centre-backs and the 2 6s, which had studied looking at Shakhtar Donetsk under De Zerbi, you could see it really coming to the fore in that first half against Wolves. It's quick. It's getting quicker now. faster, where they punch it into players under pressure and then they escape and they break lines and then the tempo gets lifted really quickly. They are now beginning to understand what's being asked of them. And I think, to be honest, technically because of their previous manager, they were all right in terms of how they were playing on the ball. But this is just a little bit different. They are, as I said prior to when they lost to Tottenham, I said they are going to win some games this year where they're going to really hurt people. I think psychologically, they're the sort of team when you're losing against is going to be punishing mentally really badly because they'll give you opportunity, but they'll pull it back away from you in possession. For Wolves,
I think Brighton are going to give Villa a beating this week.
Villa had a good result yesterday.
They did, but they also had a good result 2 weeks ago and then had their pants pulled down.
And interestingly, they did something tactically which might actually bode well for what they do against Brighton, actually.
Yeah,
which we'll talk about.
I think Trossard's on my list of potential 1 week punts.
And he can be. I think there's probably four.
I'm swayed by it being a home fixture a little bit.
Well, I think what they have now, Brighton, as well, is you're going to get two sides of Brighton. This is going to happen. So what you got against Chelsea and what you've got at the weekend, where they can go and dominate and score a few goals, is going to happen. You are also going to have days like Nottingham Forest, where they have the 20-odd shots, and the longer it goes on, the less confident you feel about them scoring and stuff, even though in the first half they should have had that game won on that night. So I think there will be frustrating days, but from a 1 week punt perspective, yeah, there's a few you can go to. I mean, Leandro Trossard's 7 million now.
Right.
Is he under consideration for your search?
Not really, because I don't have a midfield problem in my FPL team. But I think he's fine if anyone wants to go for him.
So Wilfried Zaha's now not a problem for you?
No, he scored 12 points, mate.
To throw another enabling...
I'll keep him for a while, Zaha, because once I sell him, he's never fucking coming back.
Yeah, we'll see. Another enabling midfielder to throw in is Karu Mitoma. 4.9 is a really interesting one. I think you're starting. I think if you're looking for the 1 weeker to start at this value, he's probably the one to gamble. I spoke about him quite a bit after we played them at the Amex, and I think certainly Newcastle fans got a taste of his capability as early as Gameweek 2 this season as well. You know, they only bought him for about 3 million from like the J League.
Yeah.
Super signing. He is a super talent. He's the next one. Is he going to equate to big FPL returns in the future? Honestly, I really don't know. But 4.9 for 1 week punt, I really don't mind that. Trossard at 7's decent. I think Webster, for me, if it was me, and I might just throw something in place for Doherty this week if I feel I need something defensively, I'd probably go Webster. I still have a little bit of doubts on his Stupiñán's minutes personally, but I think, again, in all honesty, if you're gambling for the 1 week punt, that's the defensive one to go to is Stupiñán. I would probably go for Webster because I'm a bowl job.
Cool. Let's talk about Everton 0, Leicester 2. Home defeat for Everton. I don't think the Toffees are going to be particularly happy. Leicester are kind of getting into a little bit of rhythm now. Another clean sheet away from home. We talked about it on the differential show last week, and even I think maybe on the main pod you were talking about Leicester's away record. They've scored goals away from home.
The most?
Another 2 to add. Maddison 2 assists. I saw, you're talking about headlines, I saw a few were like, it's criminal if Maddison doesn't go to the World Cup and that kind of shit now floating around as well. Although he's doing everything in his power to possibly put himself in a situation to be in the squad.
Is.
But the squad's going to be announced in 3 days from now. Look, he's not going to be in it, is he?
No, we discussed this when we did the pod about a month ago on England's potential lineup. I'd take him. I imagine you probably would, Serge. I imagine majority
on current form, you'd take him over Bowen, for example.
I can't disagree with that. But I'm not sure Bowen's going to be in either.
I mean, they're different players, to be honest with you, yeah. But
Bowen wouldn't deserve to be in over Maddison at the moment.
No way.
But Bowen's more likely to go because Southgate he wants to go down tried and tested, unfortunately. If he's in the squad on Thursday, I'll be absolutely delighted, but I'll also be extremely shocked, unfortunately. Yeah. But to highlight how well he is playing, I'll give you a few statistics. So only KDB, Kane and Heung-min Son have more 2022 attacking returns in the Premier League than James Maddison. He had 6 shots in the first half on Saturday, 8 in total. Now, admittedly, quite a few of them from outside the box. None of them on target, however. Also created 3 chances. He is absolutely on top of it at the moment. And actually, watching the game on Saturday live, it kind of began to strike me that everything we've seen from him this year, he stands out more than I think anybody else at that value range where it's almost like, forget the fixtures. Forget the fixtures. And unlike, say, with Saka, and it's not to say Maddison's a better asset than Saka, and I'm speaking longer term here rather than this coming week, for example. Fixtures with him don't matter. He's taking on a real talisman nature now, whereas with Arsenal, you've got Saka, you've got Martinelli, Saka, Jesus, you've got Xhaka and Odegaard contributing. With Vardy and Daka not really doing the business up front, it still feels like the majority of the returns will come from Maddison or Harvey Barnes or Yuri Tielemans if he wants to strike a volley again from 25 yards. He basically action replayed his goal against Wolves. I mean, incredible. It was arguably goal of the month for last month and this month. Yes, I hear you, Miguel Almiron owners. But yeah, he's absolutely on top form at the moment, James Maddison. And a serious consideration. I don't even looked at Leicester's fixture on the other side. It'd be a serious consideration just to go in. And I know you like a set and forget idea. And I don't.
Newcastle
I
and
don't
Liverpool.
think. Yeah, I know.
Then Fulham, Forest, Brighton, Villa.
But then a little bit like when I bought him on wildcard, he was walking into Tottenham away. And I know a lot help. Oh, I don't want him for Tottenham away. Like he can't return against Liverpool and Newcastle. Like he can. So they're not good fixtures. But it might be one a little bit like where I made the choice to go Martinelli over Rashford in game week 1 when at the time Arsenal's opening 2 looked a lot tougher than United's at the time. Yes, at the time. It was better just to go straight to Martinelli and save me the all-planned game week 3. It might be a similar feeling I have for Maddison after Unlimited, and I think even more so if he doesn't go to the World Cup. I mean, he's just hungry to prove people that... And he can't get suspended because he's 5 yellow cards already, unless he gets another 5.
This is an interesting week to maybe consider going into him because obviously West Ham away now...
I don't hate it if anyone wants to buy him this week.
Me neither. I do think Leicester will get onto the score sheet on Saturday against West Ham, but West Ham now need to win that last home game before the World Cup. So I think there's going to be a lot for a lot of teams. Actually, there's going to, like home teams. There's going to be this is the last game before the World Cup lift because you're not going to see your team for a while. And everybody will want to go into that break on a winning note.
There's a lot of fans who probably don't want to see their team for a while.
We'll talk about that. So I think it's going to be actually a really good game, but I can see Maddison on the score sheet. And remember, he takes so many of the set pieces, corners, free kicks. He's on it all. So Maddison's a great
He's
shout.
always going to be in and around it. I think, and it's worth saying, we have to credit Brendan Rodgers here because he was dead man walking. I think nearly all of us would have gone, get him out the door and stuff. They are working now to the structure that he wants, and it is working. So we've spoken in the past about this right-sided balance with Timothy Castagne getting higher and James Justin kind of a little bit more breaks on the left-hand side. Tielemans actually, despite these 2 brilliant goals at Wolves and Everton, is playing a deeper position. And it's setting Leicester setting Leicester up better on turnovers. So that actually when they lose the ball, he's kind of got he's holding Samari's hands if Samari's playing with him. It might be and Diddy comes back in. I think Samari's doing okay at the moment, actually. He's sitting deeper and it's protecting Leicester a little bit. And it means he's on the ball more as well. And you've got Dewsbury Hall plays this kind of left-sided 8 position where he pushes on really high, and that's part why Justin doesn't. So they have this really neat kind of triangle with Barnes and Dewsbury Hall and Justin, which also equates to bringing the forward in the play in higher phases where they can really dominate on that side. And because Castagne goes down the right and Dewsbury Hall leans left, Maddison comes off the right and picks up the space where you really, really want him. That's one of the problems for England is you go, play Maddison on the right. Yeah, but structurally, this is true. Structurally, coming off the flank and playing that position for England's not the same. A lot of what Leicester are doing is designed to getting the best out of their best player. It's James Maddison. And as I said, I think while they're not scoring goals at the top end of the pitch, he's going to continue to be involved. Wout Faes, on Sideshow Bob, was brilliant. He really is a player, despite his look. As David Luiz often magnificently was when he was at it. Honestly, he looks like a top player to the extent, if he continues how he's been playing the last few games for Leicester, the big clubs will come for him next summer.
Wow.
That's how impressive he's been in the last couple of games that I've watched.
I feel like DCL and Bamford are having their own little private competition to see who can continuously come back and get injured and come back and get injured and come back and get injured and come back and get injured. And you feel for them a little bit.
Well, yeah.
But it starts becoming a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy cycle. It's horrible.
You couldn't take Calvert-Lewin to the World Cup.
You couldn't take Bamford. No, like...
You couldn't.
Yeah. I don't want to take any comedy value out of people's injuries. It's just not right. But there just seems to be a continuous problem.
Yeah, and it's going to be a problem for Everton this coming week as well. So what would they probably do, assuming Calvert-Lewin's out? Because it's Bournemouth, it might speed up more pay plays. But we spoke about this with Sean Norton last week. He just feels like wrong player, wrong club. It's just not a good fit, unfortunately. He ends up isolated quite a lot, and it's not really his game. Anthony Gordon was dropped, interestingly, and he had a super start to the season, and actually his performances have nosedived quite a bit, I think, since the transfer window shut, ironically. Sometimes it goes the other way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where players want to go. Actually, in that period, he was playing really well. I feel he's dropped off. I imagine he will come back on the team because I think Dwight McNeil, unfortunately, he's just never going to live up to the player many of us thought or know that somewhere in there is there, but it's never going to come out. They were really sloppy playing out from the back, Everton. I think that's partly is a lot of credit to Leicester and the way they set up structurally. But Leicester invited them into traps and still on the ball, technically not quite good enough. Garner Gay has not come back, the player that left Everton. Now, it could be that he's still trying to get up to fitness and he's obviously gone off injured at half-time. We think injured at half-time at the weekend. And yes, they're better off for having him in there because his positional awareness is getting better out, particularly Alex Iwobi, for example. But he's not come back quite to the level of player that he was. They conceded 20 shots. The interesting stat is 20 shots to Leicester at the weekend, which is the sixth time this season Everton have conceded 20 or more shots in a Premier League game. No other teams conceded more than 3.
Had it happened more than 3 times?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
No one else had it happen more than 3 times. It's now happened 6 times to Everton. And yet, they have been one of the, statistically, in terms of goals conceded, one of the best in the league this season. This combination makes Jordan Pickford a seriously, potentially good FPL asset. I'm not saying for 1 week, but he certainly would have been the one I went with on wildcard in 13. And it will certainly come under consideration on the other side of World Cup as well. That combination of cheap, team concedes a lot of shots, capable of getting in the bonus because low-scoring games, etc. He falls in line. Well, that's really interesting at the moment. That said, I might just go with Ward and Everson because Leicester are now 5 clean sheets in 7. They kept 5 clean sheets in their previous 29. And Danny Ward is beginning to look like the shirt fits. And if you go in new, Ward is likely to go to 4.2, it looks like, ahead of this weekend. But Everson is 3.9. I've obviously bought Ward at 4. I think the way Face has improved them makes me want to seriously consider that on the other side. I think psychologically, though, a little bit like what you said with Maddison, you're going into those 2 keepers straight into Liverpool, Newcastle, and you want to get the advantage straight away. So I'm not sure what I'll do yet. But I don't hate that. It just gives you more money as well. I began looking at teams last night to see if they'd work with like De Bruyne, Salah, Kane and Haaland. Formium. It does break you a little bit too much if you want to keep Cancelo and Trippier as well. But if you really wanted to clear it out, it doesn't look great. But certainly going the 2 Leicester keepers will save you some money.
Let's talk about some of the Sunday games. You have Chelsea 0, Arsenal 1. I didn't get to watch this. I was driving. But from what I hear and the feedback from Arsenal fans and bits and pieces, comfortable.
They were superb.
Comfortable.
And it really pains me, you know that. But they were absolutely brilliant. Better team by miles. They look mentally and physically strong and ready.
And you got to remember, this is off the back of City leapfrogging them in the table to top spot. So now now it's a different pressure.
Very interestingly, and I might have this wrong, so forgive me if I am, but Arteta spoke after the game about the fact that City had won the day before. It felt like the first acknowledgement of going for it.
Yeah.
If they keep that team fit, they're going to push City all the way. They are the second best team in this league right now by a long, long way. And the only reason they won't finish in the top 2 is injuries. If you start losing key players, the depth there is a problem. And if they end up going really deep in Europa and decide they want to try and win it, then that's potentially going to be a problem later on. But right now, they're playing brilliant football. You couldn't, even from a Tottenham fan perspective, you couldn't fail to be impressed with them. Right from back to front. Saliba right now is on form, is the best centre-back in the league. Name me a better one. He's got everything. I can't believe how well he's adapted. And I'm sure most Arsenal fans must be looking at it now and going, why have we let him go out on loan the last couple of years?
But maybe that was what made him, right?
So I don't think he's got a flaw. He's absolutely brilliant.
And he physically, like when he started breaking into the team, we haven't seen him, right? It's not even that we haven't seen him play. We haven't seen him, and suddenly I'm like, he's a bit of a unit. Yep. He's tall, big, strong. I'm like, I felt like when they bought him a couple of years ago, it was a skinny French centre-back who was young in his teens or whatever else, because they bought him when he was, 19, 20? And physically didn't develop. He's come back and he looks like a man.
He's aggressive. He's got good recovery. He's got good pace. He's good in the air. He's a good passer. I every time I watch him, I just get more and more impressed. He gives that aura that at moments he almost looks unbeatable. And we know VVD's not had a great season, but you felt like that with him in the past, haven't you?
Yeah. I was tracking VVD's stats against you guys yesterday, for example, because of Sky Fantasy Football passes and tackles. And
he only about 10 in the second half, didn't he? I think.
Yeah, but he made it to tier 1. But how many tackles did he make all game?
I'm going to guess none.
0. Yeah. Because he doesn't. Because of positioning and everything else.
Saliba will.
That's the aura that comes with. I don't need to because my positioning's so good and that kind of. He's good. There's no doubt about it.
If you remove Saliba, Partey, Odegaard, Jesus, that kind of spine, and I think Xhaka's worth mentioning, but I mentioned more Odegaard because of the creativity aspects of it. If you remove those 4, they're back to average.
Yeah, but I mean, that's true for a lot of teams as well.
Of course,
right?
absolutely.
And I think if you take out 1 or 2, they have options. So take out Saliba, Ben White can play centre back and bring Tomiyasu in right back. Or what have you. Take out Odegaard and you can maybe Smith Rowe if he was fit. Like 1 or 2, I think they can move. Yeah. But 4 or 5, suddenly you're in a problem, right? But I think 1 or 2, they can move around. They've got a bit of depth now.
I'm harsh by saying average, by the way.
Saka can come out. Reece Nelson will come in and
score.
What I mean is, 2 goals.
If you took them 4 out, they can't challenge for the title.
No doubt about it.
My point is, if those 4 stay fit,
they can challenge for the title.
Yeah, absolutely that. So I think Xhaka, it's not to dismiss him, it's just Odegaard's got more of that kind of creative flair eye, but he's playing ever so well, and I thought he was particularly good yesterday, Granit Xhaka. Jesus' hold-up play, my goodness, compare him to the bloke that was at the other end of the pitch, and I know this will please Arsenal fans, but Jesus just feels at the hub of everything that's happened with Arsenal. Everyone wants to keep judging him on scoring goals. I said in pre-season I thought he could win the Golden Boot. Clearly that's not going to happen. But his importance to Arsenal and bringing everyone else into the game is so critical. He's going to frustrate because he does miss chances, but he's a top forward. Aubameyang had 8 touches.
The whole game?
Well, he came off after about 65 minutes.
Oh, Haaland has 8 touches. He scores 3 goals.
Well, yeah, there is that. So we shouldn't always judge people on touches, but it
shows involvement in the game.
It's particularly poor when you compare to Chelsea's other attacking players and their involvement yesterday. Although when I looked at compared to Raheem Sterling, I couldn't believe how many touches he had because I thought he was fucking anonymous, to tell you the truth. You should not be starting for England at the World Cup. I suspect he probably will, but I don't know how Southgate could pick Sterling over Saka if that was his choice, for example.
You'd make Newcastle favourites against Chelsea.
To be honest with you, if Chelsea play at St James's the way they played the last 2 games,
they'll get beat.
Newcastle won't beat Chelsea. It will be 3 or 4-0.
And Arsenal, obviously, away at Wolves, you'd think they're going to win that as well, comfortably.
There's no reason why not to.
But they're not bad.
Wolves obviously have a scoring problem. What I would say is Wolves' general play in terms of the 2 centre-backs and the midfield 3, which actually I should have spoken about. It does seem a little bit better with Boubacar Traore in the team now, will give Arsenal challenges, I would say. I don't expect Arsenal to go to Wolves and win 5-6-0, put it that way. I would expect Arsenal to go to Wolves and win, but I think it might be quite narrow, would be my instinct on that. They were excellent, though. And I think psychologically, because I'd said on this pod, winning at Palace is good, winning at Brentford's good. They went to United, got beat, didn't they? To win this one will feel different. They do normally beat Chelsea anyway, as I've been telling you for a couple of weeks. Again, Chelsea didn't turn up against them. But this was different to Arsenal's previous wins against them. They dominated Suj. Chelsea, I think, since Mourinho took over the Chelsea job in 2004, what do you think when you think of Chelsea teams for the last 17, 18 years?
Difficult to beat.
Well, that's one. but I always think physically strong, imposing. I don't think I've ever looked at a Chelsea team and thought, you look so weak. You look weak. Got overrun physically throughout the game. Arsenal won 16 high turnovers to Chelsea's 5. That's winning the ball in the final third. Which people say, oh, is that good, bad? Well, there was 11.
That's a sign of good pressing then,
there was 11 in the Tottenham-Liverpool game between both teams, to give you an example,
so
right?
16's decent.
So
against a top team like Chelsea.
They've gone and been imposing. Chelsea couldn't play through them. And I just think in the physical battle, players are weak. I've never seen a Chelsea team look so weak. Again, I don't understand why Kovacic didn't play. Maybe he's got an injury at the moment that he's carrying, which has been rumoured, but they always look a better team when he plays. I don't... If Chelsea fans can tell me how they play without him, I just don't get it. Do not get it at all. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I suspect, will be a surprise name in the England squad, by the way, so just quite possibly.
Okay. Aston Villa 3, Manchester United 0. Unai Emery is back.
Nil? It wasn't that bad.
One.
I mean,
they didn't score.
It was a fluky goal.
But still, yeah. Aston Villa scored 4 goals and won 3-1. Sorry, so didn't see this coming at all. United had been better. Villa hadn't been great, but yeah, new manager bounce.
Let's do United first, because it should be said. Look, Anthony, Fernandes, Sancho not available. And obviously Martial was only used as a substitute. So, you know, if you put them 4 available for selection, that's a very different Manchester United that we're looking at, rather than Garnacho's, who, to be honest, I've not had a proper look at yet. He's not 4.3 in FPL. He's obviously playing on the left. I don't think he'll be in the team for the trip to Fulham. Donny van der Beek back in the team from nowhere, right? Which felt like... The one thing I felt thinking about the game with not knowing what we'd get from Villa was, it's going to be intense. You know, if you go there with someone who's probably not up to match fitness and stuff, you're potentially going to struggle. When I saw the team and I saw Fred wasn't in it, I was really surprised. Really surprised. Because I thought United were better off going with a more defensive idea in the opening phase of the game, so at least they worked out what Villa did. The problem was, by the time they'd worked out what Villa did, they were 2-0 down. And what Villa did was a little bit like his Villarreal style, where essentially it was 4-4-2 without the ball. So you've got Ramsey to the right and Buendia to the left of the midfield 4, retreating defensive phases, but in attacking phases, coming into central areas and playing like 10s. And particularly, obviously, Ramsey's hugely benefited from that yesterday and will hugely benefit if this is a system that Villa keep. I'm not saying you should steam in as an FPL asset, of course not, but one to keep an eye on quite quickly on the other side, I think, because he's been out the team recently. Buendia's the technician, right? You got Ramsey as the one who will run in beyond. Yep. And from that, from a starting point, to allow those 10s to come inside, you've got the 2 forward players end up going into wide areas, so they become like split forwards in Bailey and Watkins. So obviously have plenty of pace. Bailey is essentially a winger who likes to run at people and go behind. Watkins is a really good runner off the channels. And amazingly, this wasn't a million miles away from Steven Gerrard's diamond setup, but the little tweak of making it a square rather than a diamond just worked so perfectly for Villa. And Casemiro was getting pulled side to side. And Villa came at them hard and fast and did well. Now, everyone knows what's coming, potentially. So, as I said, in terms of what they'll do against Brighton, so I imagine what Villa will probably do is probably use Watkins and Bailey to try and stop those passes into McAllister and Caicedo. Probably let Brighton's fullbacks have it, which you think, oh, you can get overloaded that side. But Ramsey and Buendia will retreat. And I think they'll try and leave themselves as with Luiz and Dendoncker, who's played the last few, as kind of spare shield in front of that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they cede possession quite a lot against Brighton. But they'll be capable of getting something now. Villa fans are delighted right now.
So they should be.
I did think...
2 wins out of the last 3.
Yeah, it's simple, this game, isn't it? There is a 4-0 defeat in the middle of that, by the way. I did think when I was watching the scenes afterwards, and they haven't beat Manchester United at home since the Alan Hansen comment.
Oh, wow. You never win anything with kids?
1995.
Okay.
There's only what, 2-3 years that we're out of the Premier League? That's incredible. I think the stat I heard was it was the longest stretch in Premier League history without a home team beating the away team. Yeah,
oh, wow.
That's obviously come to an end now. These hoodoos must do eventually. But yeah, they'll be in play. Oh, what I was going to say is the celebrations afterwards reminded me of after Villa beat Leicester under Steven Gerrard. And it felt like, a new big Villa dawn. One game, calm down, but great start. United, I don't think it's disastrous. I blame Harry Maguire. Why not? I saw people blaming Harry Maguire yesterday. It was obviously in jest because he'd obviously kept the clean sheet against you, come back out the team, and it wasn't better. United will be better for having players, but there's a lot of attacking good players missing from that team now. I think Ten Hag will realise he got it wrong, but he's actually got a lot right recently. Dallow's suspended.
Yes, another yellow card.
Yes. You're like, I'm buying him on Unlimited. Possibly,
yellow
so
card.
we spoke about this being the ideal scenario for non-owners was, get him suspended for Fulham. He is suspended. Repeat what I said last week. So the yellow cards only stay within the same competition. So he'll be suspended for the Premier League games, whereas red cards do count for the domestic cup competitions, hence why Cancelo is available for game week 16. That's why Dalot is not. Yellow cards will only count for the same competition.
We're talking about new dawns, James. Southampton won at Newcastle 4. Do you a new dawn at Southampton?
Well, we think the reports going last night, I forget the lad's first name, Trustwell from The Athletic is reporting that Southampton have decided to sack Ralph Hasenhüttl, but haven't decided whether to do it this week or next week, which is really weird. Someone's leaking that information. It's
that leaks out in the media.
Yeah, it's really weird.
If you'd heard that in the media, you just go in and say, look, are you sacking me or not? Just go in and have that meeting. Are you sacking me or not?
What are you going to do? Leave him out to have one final 9-0 hurrah at Anfield? Like, what are you...
Not worth it.
Look, I don't want to speak about Southampton too much because Matt Samuel's coming on Clash of Correspondence with Dan Lord to preview the game at Liverpool on Thursday. But that's just bizarre. But statistically, if you look at them, so 17 points from their last 26 games. Those 26 games, they've scored 21, so less than a goal a game, and they conceded 54, which is more than 2 a game. So it's a long enough period of concern. I just think back to how they played at Tottenham in January. They beat us 3-2. They should have beat us about 7-2. They demolished us. And then in the first half, it should have been about 4-1 up. Then they went behind to us and still had the balls to come back. And how many times I said to you, I don't like playing them.
Yeah.
They'll give you a chance, but don't like playing them because they come with intensity. Now, I feel they've lost that. For whatever reason, the message, and it might just be a case of, and I've spoken about this before with certain managers, it might just be the same voice is a bit boring now. And it might be why he's trying so many different systems, so many different combinations of players. It feels like from week to week, it's almost impossible to predict their 11. So anyway, we'll speak with Matt about it more. You're definitely not looking for Southampton players prior to going to Anfield. I certainly wouldn't be put off going for Liverpool players. To flip that on its head, Southampton 17 points from the last 26. Newcastle have 65 from their 33 Premier League games in 2022.
It's amazing.
That is one shy of 2 points per game.
Amazing.
It is.
Really good. A shout out to Kieran Trippier again. Second time this season, banking a clean sheet before the goal is conceded.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Everyone's got him.
14 games this season, James.
Yep.
He's returned in 11 of them.
That's incredible.
Consistency is unbelievable. He didn't return.
He's about to go up to 6.0 by looks of it.
He didn't return against Liverpool, Tottenham, interestingly, and Wolves was just the 1-1. But Liverpool and Tottenham are 2 of the 3 games he didn't return in. Other than that, every single game, it's a clean sheet or an attacking return in them.
What's the theme of all those 3 games? All away from home.
Right.
Means Kieran Trippier has returned in every home game so far.
Yeah.
Including, obviously, Manchester City in game week 3. And they are at home to Chelsea this weekend. That return is mad. Please don't underestimate Newcastle in his top 4 race. I repeat what I said last week, that there might be a drop-off later in the season because of fatigue, considering they've had this run for so long. But I don't know. The World Cup break might mean that they don't have it. Whereas I think if they weren't having the World Cup break, I think it probably would kick in at some point. They're in incredible form. You've still got Isak and St. Maximin to bring back into this team at some point as well, right? They are dangerous.
I think they'll spend a bit of money in January as well, yeah?
What I can say you, and this isn't meant as a criticism of Liverpool, because overall, Liverpool are still probably more likely than Newcastle to finish top 4, despite being miles off, just because the pressure might get to Newcastle when it's new. I've just seen my team get beat at home by Newcastle and Liverpool in the last 2 home games. There isn't a doubt in my mind that right now the 2 teams, Newcastle are better.
Yeah. Wilson off at half time.
Yeah, well, so it turned out that I wasn't feeling well, obviously, was something because...
Probably.
Well, Eddie Howe's words were that he was taken off at half-time because he felt a bit dizzy and stuff and was still feeling the after effects of it. So, obviously, wasn't at 100%. I wouldn't have concerns about him playing against Chelsea. It's not till Saturday. Should be fine. Almiron is now becoming a joke. It's gone from Almageddon to what we're going to call it, the Alma Renaissance or something. I don't know.
I wonder,
do you think incredible.
Do you think I can do to Almiron what I do to Trossard?
Please break him, because I don't really want to buy him.
And to be honest with you, if I want money to break the hoodoo, the Newcastle lot have got way more than the Brighton lot, and they let me get that Saudi Arabia money.
What? I mean, I a little bit like you, I don't think I have midfield issues in the sense that like buying Almiron for Rashford for my last chance doesn't feel right. When I know Fulham will give up loads of chances as well, it doesn't feel right. But I can't tell you. All logic in my heart tells me going in for a Newcastle player for a 1 week punt against Chelsea is wrong. But everything I've seen logically in the last few weeks tells me it's absolutely fine. And he's on fire, isn't he?
I'm stuck with 3 of them at the moment, so I can't and I won't. But come Unlimited, they call it Overhaul there. Shout out Sky, whose servers don't break. I
don't know. They've had problems too, mate.
Pope will be gone in the unlimited period, and Miguel will probably be in because they've got a great run post World Cup as well.
Well, this is it. So
Trippier's not going anywhere. If Wilson's fit, I want him as well because he's good value. I'm going to add Miguel on.
The only thing with Wilson, and if we're thinking further ahead beyond, obviously, Game Week 16, with Wilson and Almiron, is exactly what I already said, Isaacs and St. Maximin. What's the impact of that longer term? You can say St. Maximin and Almiron play different sides. That's absolutely right. St. Maximin comes back in on the left. Joel Linton goes deeper. Fine. Obviously, he was suspended yesterday, and they overcome that as well. I thought Murphy would played fine, what I saw of the game. But where does Isak fit into this? That's the question mark one, isn't it? And that's off-putting, I think, on Wilson and Almiron on the other side, is not knowing. What info will we have to know?
Yeah.
Now, you would think that he would just look at it and go, well, Isak will have to work his way into the team. And that would be the right answer at the moment. But at some point he will, because Alexander Isak is too good. That said, Almiron's form right now is too good. He's the most formed player in the league. He is completely busting the underlying numbers, right? Like we've had this before with players like Jade Lings, Such that period at West Ham and stuff, where I think if it wasn't for Unlimited, you'd have to buy him. If you don't own. He's got to that point now where he's flying so high. I mean, I don't know what Bella Kotchop was doing on that goal yesterday, but when he gets there, he used to lose all composure, didn't he? When it broke and he's rid the challenge, he's scoring again here. He just rolls it in, no problem at all. So he's flying. Did you see Bruno Guimaraes' tweet last week?
No.
So good. So Guimaraes, Trippier and Almiron all been nominated for Player of the Month.
Oh, nice.
Which is unusual to get 3 players from the same team, actually, but they've been that good, in fairness. Guimaraes tweeted and was like, sorry to Kieran Trippier and myself, but you have to vote for Almiron. It's his time. And I can't argue that at all. He does deserve to be Player of the Month. Goal of the Month, the lot. And yes, if it wasn't for Unlimited, I'd be buying him. So you know what I'm saying? I don't think that's right for the 1 week, conscious like Rashford to Almiron. But if I was looking longer ahead, I think I have to do it.
Yep.
I think Newcastle, I don't know if Chelsea can be as bad again. And Newcastle might feel the pressure of actually people will... I don't know what the odds would be, but Newcastle should be favourites to win that game. But if both teams play as they have been playing lately, honestly, I would not be surprised if Newcastle win 3 or 4-0.
West Ham 1, Crystal Palace 2 in the pouring rain at the London Stadium. It's probably, possibly, definitely the worst game of the weekend. If you look at all the other Premier League games.
Well, I told such a fairly horrifying stat before we started recording on West Ham, and this depends on where you look at it, because some models will tell you West Ham's XG was 0.25. Some will tell you it was 0.19, which is the worst XG for any team in a home game in the Premier League so far this season.
Horrifying.
That's
disappointing.
That shouldn't. What's that, mate?
Nah, it was.
And I've watched next to nothing of the game.
It was a poor game of football in every which way. I mean, I think Crystal Palace had good control in the midfield, but we let them have a lot of possession. We stood off like there was a point 25, 30 minutes in, they were at 70% possession. And they knocked it around well and tried to create chances. There wasn't a huge amount of clear cut. They did have a few, but nothing that you're like, wow, we're getting peppered here on goal. I mean, their XG wouldn't have been more than one as well. Zaha did his usual. He's so annoying. Like if he focuses his mind, you'd think like you could dominate, but he spends too much time moaning and whinging. And West Ham were worse.
You hate him, didn't you?
I don't like that attitude.
He also has no idea what FPL is.
Yeah, it's true. I think
so he doesn't care about your opinion or mine.
West Ham.
We can say whatever we want about him.
West Ham were bad. Like just a lack of ability passing. Like build up play was bad. Inability to hold the ball. No attacking threat whatsoever. Scamacca was drawn at half time. Disappointing. I own him in Sky, James. So I feel your pain a little bit there. And I don't know if he will start against Leicester on.
Well, I think that one
Saturday.
There's probably clues from the midweek game a little bit, isn't there? So all I mean by that is, I think
might even go real kids in the.
Well, he might. I don't think
again.
he will. But I think that's a perfect case scenario one where if Scamacca plays against Blackburn on Wednesday night, you've got them, and then Leicester Saturday, isn't it? Yeah. So if Scamacca plays on Wednesday night and Antonio gets the night off, then that's nervous, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if Antonio starts against Blackburn, I'd have no Scamacca will play against Leicester. Not that I'd be confident considering the change in Leicester recently and stuff as well. Was it just shit or?
I wouldn't be diving into any West Ham. I wouldn't be diving into any Palace either. I think, there's a problem. The team, body language, facial expressions, everyone's playing with a little bit of a huff and a puff. Passing's not good. Kehra's a really interesting one. He's a really good footballer with amazing ability that makes mistakes. And you're like 85, 90% of the time he's really good. His left foot is lovely.
The pass from Dawson's bad.
It's bad.
Yeah.
But Kehra does make mistakes. And he's like, it's just frustrating because you're like, if you know why he didn't make it at PSG, because he makes the odd mistake. And inevitably the mistakes he makes are leading to goals. Bowen can't get in the game at the moment. Ben Rama, once again, best player on the pitch.
Why did he get taken off?
Subbed. I don't know, but that substitution was booed.
I'm not surprised.
And then straight away everyone was singing
you've
Ben Rama's
been telling
name.
us he's been your best player for the last few.
He's the one that wants to take the game by the scruff of the neck from an attacking point of view. Disappointing for West Ham. The thing is, it's a good team in a bad situation at the moment as opposed to a bad team. There's definitely talent and players there. It's just not clicking. West Ham will click into some sort of form, and the league, whether we can get Europe, is probably going to be a real stretch now, but we could have a good go in a few cups. There's a good team in bad form right now. I just wouldn't be looking to dive in to any FPL assets until after the World Cup and see when we can get some rhythm.
I've had a few say relegation fight and stuff.
Not even, mate.
No concerns. And
even.
The one thing about XG, which we always say, is that you shouldn't look at one game. It just gives us a little bit of a story of last weekend's game. However, this stat does tell us something different. So Newcastle 65 points from their 33 games in 2022. West Ham 39.
Yeah, but then you got to look at that whole
33 games
period where we were trying to win the Europa League, so we let a lot of points drop around then. I get it. It's not good, but it's also like not shit the bed time, to be honest with you.
No, I don't think it's shit the bedtime, but I think the expectation of West Ham fans now is European qualification. And quite honestly, because of the performances of Newcastle and Brighton, the only way you're getting it is by winning a cup competition.
Going for it now. But I think, look, to be honest, if you own West Ham assets from an FPL point of view, the Bowens of the world, he's still going to play on Saturday. It's still a home fixture, but the other side of the World Cup, I wouldn't be overly excited about diving into West Ham.
What's wrong with Bowen?
I'm not sure. He's getting kicked a lot more now.
But have they broken up?
People know his I don't do Instagram, James. So you'd have to ask one of the cool kids that does Instagram and follows Danny Dyer.
Maybe the honeymoon period is over.
We'll see. Look, he's getting kicked a lot on target. People know his threat, right? So obviously he's going to get doubled up on and stuff. It's difficult. And Palace, to their credit, made it a very good, strong physical game. They were decent. From a physicality point of view, it was a bit of a niggly game, quite a lot of fouls, but
I A word on Palace.
Yeah, they were decent as well, but not threatening.
Listen, those who regularly listen to the Monday pods have kind of been screaming about this formation issue. And again, I have to confess, I haven't seen too much of the game yesterday, but I've seen enough to tell me Schlupp deeper, Zaha more central, Ayew and Elise in the team, so you can still have Ayew defensively and still have Elise's effectiveness in central areas as well. Jackpot. That's all it took.
And Decore in the middle.
And I don't, obviously back in, but they was having a problem before when Decore was playing because he was still on his own. It just dropped Schlupp in a bit deeper. And it was more of a 4-2-3-1. And I just think better balance. I mean, look, for as much as you can criticise West Ham for that XG total yesterday, praise Palace, right? That's really good, really good. It's got to be good from their side as well. So that's promising, and I might lead a few to think more about playing the likes of if you've got Gay or Anderson at Nottingham Forest this weekend. I think is reasonable. I think, by the way, the one I would go and buy if you wanted a 1 week Palace punt defensively is Tyreek Mitchell.
Yeah, he was good. He bombed on a lot on the left.
And that is a consequence of Wilfried Zaha playing centrally. And Eze is not... Zaha can have moments where he just hugs out there. Eze won't do that. So it does allow Mitchell to do that. So it might be if... The sensible thing for Palace to do is not put Edouard back in the team, and I'm sorry, I know a lot of people will be on it, but is to go with that. That structure again is the right structure, and that might be they think Forest well and play Edouard out on the right, for example. You could, I'm sure he could do that job, for example. But yeah, Mitchell would be the one for the 1 week punt if you want to look at them defensively. I don't mind Michael Elise at 5.4 either. I think I'd prefer that for the 1 weeker rather than Eze, just because on yesterday's evidence he could be in more central areas. And Zaha, to be honest...
Eze takes more set pieces.
Zaha himself is a decent 1 week punt.
Yeah. If you own him, I wouldn't be looking at moving him on, to be honest with you.
At least say 3 shots, 3 chances created yesterday. Fortuitous with the goal, admittedly, in the sense of it's a mad deflection. Yep.
Let's wrap up, James, with Spurs 1, Liverpool 2. King Mohamed Salah with 2 goals is back in the game. Liverpool deserved winners, but probably what you'd call a fair scoreline. Although,
you know me, I'll come honest.
That was a penalty. Trent's pushing the back.
Not fussed.
The angle I've seen it, you can't push a player from behind. You can't push a player from behind and he falls over. That's a foul.
Fine, you're the neutral. I'll let you have that.
Like, I look at it and I'm like, if it's my player. If
it was against me,
I want that all day long.
If it was given against me, I wouldn't have a problem with it being given.
I'm talking about like Antonio's no penalty. He goes down far too easy. Tug or not, that's not a penalty. I'm happy to say if I don't think it's a penalty for my team as well, that should have been a penalty. You can't push a player from behind while he's running.
Fine. Did you want me to talk about first, Salah or Trent?
Trent.
Trent
because you own him.
I own Salah as well.
But Trent's not getting you any points.
He is an absolute... I mean, look, if you, again, to be honest, any Liverpool asset you want, like if you could afford to go Trent or Robertson for 1 week at the weekend, like by all means crack on, because they could get you an attacking team from a set piece. He is not getting forward in the same way. Now, a lot of that might be to do with playing Tottenham, right? And the fact, I think... He knew, as I'd said to you, Tottenham will target Trent. There's literally, it will be unapologetic. And the more the game went on, the more it kept happening. Distribution-wise, he played past of the season in the first half. The ball come to him, Serge, and he hit this thing like a fucking rocket, like an arrow. And the whole ground gasped as in like, oh, wow.
How'd you hit a ball?
Yeah,
like that?
Mate.
He's got one of the sweetest right foots in the game.
Technically, unbelievable and amazing. Defensively, I'm afraid to say, not good enough. Tottenham kept playing diagonals, and it got even worse actually when Perisic went out to wing back because Perisic's delivery is far superior to Sessegnon's. But every time it happened, he's so hesitant. You're thinking, get in between, get ahead on it. Now, there might be something structurally where he ends up too narrow and he's not letting people inside him, which I can understand. And I think that's kind of a default mode when people are focusing on you is, well, if I'm going to let people get past me, at least let it be on the outside rather than the inside. That's fair. But it was so obvious way for Tottenham to get forward up the pitch, just keep smashing it to the left-hand side of the pitch. They did the same in the 2-2 draw last year where he had big problems. And the teams that have capability to hurt Liverpool on that side of the pitch are going to keep hurting Liverpool on that side of the pitch. That said, they are much better off for having Ibrahim Konate back in the team. And actually, if you need a budget kind of sub 5 million centre-back option for this coming week, him at 4.8 as a potential threat on set pieces is the sort of one that could walk away with the kind of the 1 week 15-pointer. And he'll be a big consideration for me on the other side on Unlimited. Because I think he's the sort of one as well, Serge. You'll have a player who won't play.
Yeah.
He's very unlikely to be 1 pointers or so. Of course, if there's an injury or something in the game. But I think like if Matip plays with Van Dijk, then Matip plays with Van Dijk and I need my bench. I think him at 4.8 is really interesting. He's a major upgrade from Joe Gomez. And when they felt that pressure late in the second half, him being a part of it, I think certainly helped. And it definitely helped Trent in the situation from being worse than it could have been. I'd certainly play Trippier over him. I've defended Trent quite a lot, but it's amazing we've come kind of full circle from Trent versus James, and obviously Reece James is injured, but I don't think it'd be a question to play Kieran Trippier over at the moment, would it?
Yeah, I'd play Trippier all day long.
Salah. So it kind of feels like he's had a bad season, right?
He's not had a season up to his standards.
Yeah.
I would say. It's not a bad season.
He's got 14 goals and 5 assists in 20. And that's Mo Salah not playing well, really. And I know there's a couple there that skew it, like the hat-trick at Ibrox and stuff. But that's kind of part of the course, isn't it? 14 goals, 5 assists, nearly a goal attacking return per game. 75% roughly of his attacking returns being goals rather than assists. Sounds like Mo Salah to me.
Yeah, not enough in the Premier League.
But I don't think I'd ever captain him over Haaland. Like, I wouldn't think, even despite Southampton's problems, I'm not captaining Salah in that fixture over Haaland. Just interestingly, by the way, if you were, you've still got Haaland, haven't you, Serge?
Yes.
Yeah. If you were an owner of Salah and KDB, do you do anything to force Haaland in this week, or do you just suck it up and leave it?
No, because of the unlimited being around the corner, unless you have no fires to put out elsewhere. But I wouldn't be taking hits to.
But you've got to get rid of one of them two players probably to make it happen.
Yeah. So then, if you've got 2 frees and you can do something interesting like get Almiron in and power someone up, perhaps. But if you're taking a hit for it, definitely not. And if you've got other fires to put out that are more priority, then definitely not.
I think if you've sold Haaland, and it's perfectly understandable those who did. I know there's a few, when Alvarez caps him, for example, this way, and well done to you. But you knew you were going to come into this headache now. And if you think Haaland's going to play, I'm presuming you probably think Alvarez probably isn't as well. So that adds to the problem if you've gone that way, Serge. So he's a tricky one. But I think probably not. I couldn't see the removing of Mo Salah from -4 at home to Southampton to get Haaland back in. I can't have that, I don't think. So I think most cases, suck it up and leave it.
Well, look, I had a similar dilemma in Sky. Right, I sold him for Salah 2 weeks ago. I've had the rub of it with Salah for the 2 weeks because I captained Salah yesterday. Now I have a real decision to make. Like, I see the team, and obviously you see the team in Sky anyway, but there's going to be a real decision to make on whether to go back for Haaland.
But that's it's different. So sorry to those who don't play Sky, but your transfer is more precious than that.
Yeah.
Whereas you've got one in FPL that you have to use.
Yes, but then there's the effective ownership is a problem, right? So I won't own Haaland. Everyone will captain him on Saturday, and if I don't, I'm going to get really hurt. So I kind of have to...
Here's hoping.
There's almost like cover yourself off, right? Is the risk bigger? It's different, I get it. But there is a big decision to be made here with Haaland. Like, we're talking about...
I think for most people it's one game and leave it. I think Haaland in for Kane, I'd do.
You talk about Ruben Neves, right? Finishing as Wolves' top goal scorer this season. I think if Haaland was injured for the rest of the season, he's still got a chance of winning the Golden Boot. 18 goals now.
No,
it's not a great chance, but it's still a chance.
Harry, if he stays fit, will top that.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be like surprised if he gets to 22, 23, there's every chance that he can win the Golden Boot and only play half a season.
Well, I think the way it's going, there's every chance Harry will outdo the total of Son and Salah last year as well, to be totally honest. Just on Liverpool, stylistically as well, was a little bit different. Yes, they've still got problems in midfield. The whole of the second half, as much as Tottenham improved, I did think Liverpool looked leggy. I really did. And do you know what? It might have been part of the strategy to get at Tottenham earlier and stuff, particularly considering Tottenham's fucking Jekyll and Hyde first half and second half at the moment. Every game seems the same. I thought we were unfortunate to be 2-0 down at half-time. Obviously, Dyer's had a complete clusterfuck moment where he's tried to edit backwards and it comes off his shoulder. I actually thought his performance was really good otherwise, Eric Dyer. But it's obviously a car crash moment. But this was far more like the 4-3-3 I think we're more familiar with for Liverpool, actually, to me, with Salah kind of hugging right. Nunez basically played left wing, with Firmino doing his normal job. That evolved a little bit in certain stages of the game. But I never felt like... Sometimes you play Liverpool, and I think most fans who've played against Liverpool have experienced this over the last couple of years. You just feel like the intensity and their domination is just overwhelming. And I know from Liverpool's perspective, they've had a couple of really bad results. So however they won this was obviously really important, and credit to them for getting through it and doing so. But there's no aura about them at the moment. There's nothing. I'm talking about in the midfield area. Forget VVD and other stuff. Just in the midfield area. There's no aura that they're going to dominate me with Fabinho and Thiago and Elliott. I don't think any of them three players played badly. I don't think any of them excelled either. Just not at their best at the moment. For Spurs... So what have I kept screaming at you, Serge, recently?
Creativity is a problem.
It only took 81 fucking seconds.
Yeah. I mean, that was interesting and ironic. Like, I owned Kulu at the start of the season. For him to suddenly become an interesting option again, we've had questions on Twitter that are like, is it time to go back to Kulu? I wouldn't even know what price he is now, but he's going to be, what,
8 million. No, he's 8 million.
He's held at 8 million. I mean, he got as high as 8.2. So he's held.
Would not be top of my agenda.
Yeah, only because the unlimited's around the corner and
fitness.
Unlikely to start again, isn't he? I say unlikely, actually. Maybe he is.
No, I mean, I'm going to Forest Wednesday night in the Cup. I'm kind of hoping they can get him 45 minutes Wednesday, and then he starts and tries to get me 70 against Leeds. Would kind of be my hope. Yes, we need him absolutely desperately. You're very unlikely if you buy to get 90 minutes, I would say. So. No, I listen, he can do that. He wouldn't commonly play 90 minutes for Tottenham anyway. He'd probably play 75, 80 or so. So it shouldn't necessarily put you off. But I think as well that Leeds will be an intense game. We know that. And Leeds, it's worth saying and reminding, won at Liverpool, beat Chelsea very comfortably, unlucky against Arsenal. These bigger games have been suiting Leeds. And it's not beyond Leeds to come to Tottenham and win next week. Particularly with the way we fucking start first halves of a football match, doing my head in. But it wasn't that bad yesterday that Perisic hit the woodwork twice. I'm sure once people saw the team, and we all thought the same once we saw him, oh my God, he is actually going to play up front in a front two. Thought it might have been a possibility in a three. I can't say I saw that coming in a two. It's not going to happen again. It's extremely unlikely. When I say it's not going to happen again, could it happen against Leeds? Possibly, but unlikely. So Lucas Moura basically is just not fit, and Conte's been begging him to participate at the moment. He's got this inflammation of the calf and Achilles, which he can't get rid of, and he's probably going to need an operation at some point. Obviously, Richarlison's out, Son's out, Kulusevski's just back. The two bright kids that Tottenham had, Troy Parrott and Dane Scarlett, they correctly let on go on loan to Preston and Portsmouth, respectively. So, and Conte showed no signs in Marseille of using the idea of putting Perisic further forward. Hill, I think, is an option he only wants to use later in games. So if we think about Leeds next week, the idea of Kulusevski 70 minutes and Hill for the last 20, so I think it's the sort of thing we could see. And it might be that the system reverts back to more of a 3-4-3 where Perisic could play as the left-sided winger. It's a possibility. Now, you can't get rid of him at the moment. Unless he plays 90 minutes at Nottingham Forest at Wednesday, he'll start against Leeds, I should imagine. In terms of the wing-backs, I can't give you any answer now till that game's gone. It's the honest truth. If you ask me right now, I'd imagine wing-backs would be Perisic and Sessegnon again. Perisic and Emerson against Leeds.
Is done for me from an FPL point of view, I think, for the season. I don't think I'll be ever going back to Ivan Perisic. He scored 1 point, James, 8 times this season.
Yeah, but
there comes a point where I'm happy to miss the haul of 12, 15 points to just ignore the ones.
No, I get you, but honestly, he's hit the woodwork twice yesterday. Correct. And I know it's playing up front. He's on all the set pieces while Son is out. Like, you definitely would not sell him right now.
Yeah, but if there was 2s and 4s drip feeding along and then the odd haul, cool, but 1-1-1 8 times this season.
I got home last night.
Point.
It's honestly true. And the wife said to me, "Let me look at my team."
Perisic 0
and,
points.
And she said, "I got to get rid of that Perisic. He's and I'm trying. Imagine me trying to explain to me he's 0 points, but actually he could have been like fucking 20.
Yeah, every game it might be like that, but it might end up being that frustration with him.
And it might be. And to be honest, yeah, it's probably not going to be for me on Unlimited either. The reason I say probably why Emerson rather than Doherty, by the way, just thinking about it, is Leeds and their direct running. Emerson, I don't care what anyone says, I say 100 times, is far better defensively than Doherty, and he does give us better balance with Perisic. Was Doherty an improvement when he come on yesterday? Yep, absolutely, no arguments. He was better than Emerson when he come on, but it's the right situation for Doherty when we're throwing more offensive numbers on and chasing the game, and there's no defensive responsibility. So right now, would still expect Emerson probably to play against Leeds. There might be clues from that game against Nottingham Forest on Wednesday night. There will be people thinking about 1 week punts. I think, like the Tottenham wing backs, Perisic, as it stands, would be the one if you want to go there. Harry Kane is doing Harry Kane things still. Scored it in 10 of 14 Premier League games this season. We were a little unfortunate yesterday. I thought the game was quite even. We got to get out of this habit of starting games badly. Because Tottenham are set up to be a counter-attacking team, right? We know this. So get in front and counter-attack. Rather than the other way round. I mean, it's admirable that we keep having these excellent second-half performances, but you can't give... We've given 2 goal starts away in the last 3 league games, if you include, obviously, the Bournemouth game. We did turn it round. In those second halves with 5 goals scored, none conceded, right? Add in Marseille and another 2 goals scored, none conceded. I don't know how Kolasinac missed either. And Lisbon as well scored, didn't concede. So, and I know there was a graphic being posted on Sky last night about the difference between Tottenham's first halves and second halves. We're saying, even on that much improved second half graphic, Tottenham's still overperforming XG, by the way. So I've said to you, look, we've been bumbling through to World Cup. I think it's a huge victory for Liverpool, because I think if they'd lost to us, then the gap between the 2 teams was huge. And then with obviously Newcastle doing so well, it would really look like a giant leap even for top 4. They'll be in it. And obviously, look, I presumably will have Jota and Diaz back on the other side. Will be better as well. They have to address the midfield issue, though.
Cool. Shall we do a few Twitter questions, James?
Why not, sway up?
Well, tell everybody what they got to look forward to the rest of this week. Disrupted week with the Carabao Cup.
It is a disrupted week because Suj has business to attend to tomorrow, and I'm going to Nottingham on Wednesday and won't be back till Thursday afternoon. So this is what we're going to do. Tomorrow is an Ask James stream, scheduled for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Come and join me on YouTube. I'll post an audio for that afterwards. Wednesday will be Sky Fantasy Football, where me and Suj will fit this podcast in. Thursday's Clash of Correspondence will be Liverpool versus Southampton, as said, with Dan Lord and Matt Samuel. That will be available for patrons tomorrow. And on Friday, we was wondering what to do, and then it dawned on me the England squad was getting announced on Thursday, so we'll be giving all our reactions to that on Friday's podcast. Our Patreon podcast this week are Q&A on Monday. The 2 losers from last week's People's Poll, as promised, Money in Football on Coventry City tomorrow, and their ongoing stadium woes, which has been a tale for over a decade now. Wednesday, the invisible injury, concussion. We'll be delving into concussion protocols on Wednesday. Thursday will be Tottenham, reacting to the new information we have from those midweek Carabao Cup ties. And Friday will be our last Gameweek preview podcast on Patreon till December, late December, Suj, with the differential show. As said, there's additional content for advanced tiers this week as well, which will include looking at what John Stones and Nathan Aké did on Saturday against Fulham.
Nice. Right, we're going to pick out 2 or 3 questions here, James. Nothing too spectacular. We've covered a lot of stuff off. Lee Jackson, who do you think we're likely to face in the Europa League final next season? Go on, Lee. Let's go with
It won't be West Ham.
Bromby.
Bromby.
Dover City. Barcelona. You can pick whoever the fuck you want because it's not going to happen. Make your fantasy as fantastical as you like, Lee.
I'd hate to break it to Lee and tell him
Birmingham City.
Birmingham. It's not happening. Birmingham is an Actually, no, Birmingham's not an impossibility, is it? Should they win the FA Cup? That'll upset him. No, Villa will do very well if they finish top half this season. Very well.
Fantasy football nerd. chips, rice, or half and half with your takeaway? Top show, lads. Well,
Depends what it's with.
Exactly that, mate.
So
exactly that.
If I'm getting a mixed grill from the Indian, because I can't have curry, then it's rice, isn't it? It's not chips.
Exactly that.
If I'm not getting rice with fish.
Yeah, or a kebab.
Yeah, no, rice with kebab's fine, mate.
Yeah, there's a cheeky little hack. There's a kebab shop.
That's the one where it can be both, I think. If you're in a Turkish or a group and you're sitting down, rice and chips
sitting down,
is okay.
As a takeout, I'd get chips, but there's a cheeky little kebab up the road here, Golden Palace, mate. There's a hack on there. If you buy a chicken kebab, it's like 8-9 quid or something like that. Buy a doner kebab, it's like 6-7 quid. But they have something which is like 11 quid, half and half. But you get a full chicken and a full doner in the half and half. It's pretty good. Maybe that's James and I's lunch sorted. Perhaps that's something we should do during the World Cup.
Nico, you hungry?
Planet FPL does food. Because we always get asked about this.
A mixed chicken and lamb doner for the 10 a.m. watch along.
We always get asked food-related questions. Maybe we'll do 3 or 4 Planet FPL does food during the World Cup break. Depending on the nation that's playing, we should get the cuisine. Bring in steak for Argentina. Yes, mate.
Oh, you made me think about Amsterdam again now.
Adam35 Who, which team needs the World Cup break the most and which team will rue the season disruption? It's obviously like teams that are doing well don't want the break. Yeah. Newcastle, Arsenal, all of these guys.
But actually, it might work into Newcastle's and it might even work into Arsenal's as well. We don't really know. My instinct is to say Arsenal particularly could do without it because it just looked like they're going to win every game of football at the moment. If they played City this weekend, I'd fancy them, Serge, to beat City.
Wow.
I think they're that strong at the moment. Newcastle obviously clearly look like they don't need it, but actually it might be now rest this hard work and I'm going to assume they're not going to have as many going to World Cup as many others. They will have a lot of their squad, obviously, are going to go. Dan Burn, by the way, I would not mind if he got a call up. I have to say, we've got so many left-back issues. I think he's underrated. But, yeah, those who are doing well obviously stand out, and those not. I mean, look at Chelsea at the moment. I think they need it. My team needs it, definitely, just to get the bodies back. Romero is obviously a miss for us as well at the moment.
I need the break. My team,
you need the break.
I don't need the break. My team need the break.
I guess West Ham do, yeah.
Yeah, massively. Anyone that's not going to the World Cup, I'd whisk them off to Dubai or somewhere hot and just let them chill on the beach and just top up their tans and recharge the batteries big time. And we'll give the last question of the show, James, to David H. FPL _Gills. Funniest thing you've ever seen at a football match?
Oh, I dislike. I mean, I like the question, but I dislike these ones where I now have to try and process 800 games or so in my mind. And the first thing that comes to my mind is a Stoke fan falling down the stairs against Arsenal. I wasn't there.
I'm going to say, quite straightforward, simple answer, Russell Brand. He's pretty funny. He's a West Ham fan, isn't he?
Can you get the tumbleweed out for this bit, mate?
I've seen him at West Ham. At Upton Park.
Bent's beach ball goal. He's still funny.
Yeah.
David Dunn's. Do you remember when David Dunn tried to do the behind the legs flick, and Steve Bruce just laughed at him.
Fell over.
Steve Bruce in himself's quite a funny conversation.
Yeah.
I wish I had more time to think about that.
Nah. Yeah, because the thing with Russell Brand. This is 2006-07 when I was at Upton Park. So this is he would have still been a wild nutter, but he walked through like where everyone is with two attractive young ladies, like one massively tall blonde and one massively tall brunette, and that's his life, like just going to the football, living the life, and just walking around with attractive women on his arms. That was Russell Brand in his prime, but being a Hammer, top guy.
Oh, you don't sound jealous.
Mate, in 2005-06, if I was going to West Ham with 2 6'2" models, then that would have been the dream. But, Russell Brand's all right.
I'd have been intimidated, size of mate. By the way, Sush, we can't let you go without saying the Tash, mate.
Oh, the Tash.
I mean, it looks great, mate.
When you
Sush looks like he's about to get his Liverpool candy shirt on and play for Liverpool in the 80s.
You forget that it's there, right? Because you're not looking at yourself in the mirror all the time. And then now I'm going to meetings and stuff, and I'm like, do I have to justify myself? Like next week, my wife's like, we've got an open morning at school to go for my son, and she's like, you're going to shave it off before that? I'm like, it's not. I'm doing November because the people in the office have decided they're going to club together enough money to make me do Movember. I told them I wanted 150 quid raised within the office and I would grow a tash for Movember.
I don't know why you didn't ask the community. You'd made that money in 5 minutes.
But I want to grow the tash first. But the thing is, now I'm thinking that I might get to like halfway through the month, let's say after the next set of fixtures, after the next episode of the pod, next Monday, and whatever's on the link, the Movember link, if I match it, I can buy myself out of my Movember contract and get rid of this stupid caterpillar growing on my top lip.
Nico, we agree with no for that? No. I've
got to keep it for the whole month, yeah?
No, yeah.
We're going until the 30th of November.
It's Movember. It's not half Movember,
The problem is I'll keep the tash and then England are going to start doing well in the World Cup and it's going to get superstitious.
Tell you what,
I'm going to be able to shave it off until England lose.
Oh, that's interesting. Since when did superstition ever help England play football? If you quit at halfway, you can only take half off.
The sides.
Go for the bottom bit and just leave it.
I'm trying to just figure out what's the best type of tash as well. It's not full, so give it another week and it will be at a groomable stage and then we'll decide what we're going to be doing with this tash. But yes, I am doing Movember. I'll post some updates on Twitter. And at some point, maybe late this week, when I feel like the tash is worthy, I might share the link or the QR code. But FPL. Don't go crazy if you're going to jump on the link and donate, because growing a tash is not worthy of like people donating loads of money. I'm doing nothing out of hardship. Like it's actually, there's loads of benefits. Like my wife won't come near me.
And so just rather have you on Patreon anyway.
Yeah, do that. It's just it's no hardship in growing a tash other than I look like an idiot.
I want to say well done, because I look like an idiot every day anyway, so I didn't need to do it. That was my take. Before we finish, who's your most likely 1 week punt? I'm going to make my decision 15 minutes prior to deadline. What about you?
Harry Kane.
Harry Kane? How are you doing that?
I will go from, I'm not sure yet, but Harry Kane. How much is Harry Kane? 11 point?
Expensive.
Yeah, so I'd have to downgrade.
Salah or De Bruyne, you're not doing that, mate.
No, Mitrovic and maybe Zaha to free me up. It'd be for a hit if I wanted to go Harry
don't
Kane.
Be doing that, man.
Leeds at home. We watched it together last year.
I will have a bet now that Leeds won't lose at Tottenham on Saturday.
Wow. Okay. You heard it here first. Stay safe. Ciao for now.
That's a shit way to end, wasn't it? I won't be doing Leeds players as a punt. I'm just going to wait to find out that Foden's benched again. Have a great weekend, everyone. And a great week. Be nice to each other. Play it your way. Cue music, please, man child.